Have you been looking for something loud, funny, candid, and raunchy? Well, you're in luck, baby. This is Drag from the Left. Drag from the Left. A weekly digital series where we discuss RuPaul's Drag Race and socio-political issues from a radical leftist perspective. Black queer feminism. Yeah, we talk about it, but we have fun. One of the most unique podcasts on the internet. This is Drag FTL. And here are your hosts, a drag queen and educator, Juanita Bindum, and a historian and writer with their Masters in American Studies, Avery Ware.
Hey everybody, welcome back to yet another week of Drag from the Left. I am your hostess with the mostest, the very Reverend Dr. Juanita Bindum.
Hi y'all, it's Avery. My drag name this week is Aretha Franklin.
Alrighty, baby.
Aretha.
Okay, you got an Aretha tube, baby.
In the track we were talking about respect, Aretha. Okay.
You get it?
I try to make it work. I try to make it flow. Okay.
And this is not sponsored, by the way. Unfortunately.
But if y'all would like
If you like to drop an ad, baby, what you want, okay?
Baby, we got it.
We got it. Speaking of what we got, we'll be talking about this week, babe.
Okay, so we are going to do a viewer's choice.
Okay. Alex choice?
Alex choice.
Juanita choice?
Juanita choice. Okay, so we can either talk about RuPaul's very vapid, apolitical, which we'll get into, like Olivia Pope, apolitical kind of like approach to drag and like life at this point, it seems like. Again, we don't know him, but just judging what we saw on the show. Or we can talk about Ginger Minge and her unique approach to whiteness and rudeness.
Okay.
I would say. So which one you want to do?
You know what? Let's Por qué no los dos? Why not do both?
We can do both.
All right.
Okay. Let's start with the RuPaul.
All right.
Okay, so this week is the second week that RuPaul Trinity has come with an idea that is pretty political in nature, whether she knows it or not. It is inherently political. So she goes to her briefing, I guess, with
the workroom pep talk. Or whatever.
Who is also the judge and makes the final decisions, but you also the coach. Which again, I talked about this already. Don't make sense and it's stupid.
There's a reason on Project Runway that Tim Gunn, does not get to vote, except for when he gets that one time a season. Mm-hmm.
Making the cut. It's the same thing. Tim Gunn is on the same show, and he does his Tim Talks, and he coaches and gives advice, but he does not get a deciding vote.
Yeah, you can't do that.
His voice matters, his opinion matters, but he doesn't get a vote. Right. Speaking of making the cut, have you seen the recent season?
No, I have not seen the recent season of Making the Cut, but I do want to watch it because I was really disappointed to see that when they revamped Project Runway for a more modern audience, that they got rid of Tim Gunn and Heidi Klum. I thought that if anybody changed, the judges should have changed. They should have left Heidi and Tim.
Well, Heidi and Tim went over to Amazon. They got the Amazon check now.
Period, baby.
And Making the Cut is doing very well.
I heard it's really good.
This season's winner, bitch, I cried.
I'm gonna watch it. I need a new binge too. I need a new binge. Is multiple seasons available?
There's 2 seasons.
Great, I'll binge it.
And there are 2 black girls in each respective season who will
design
tug at your
boots.
heartstrings, and they are super talented.
We love it.
But okay, anyway, we're off topic. So Trinity has come with an idea that's pretty political and good ideas actually. Like they would fare well in challenges, I believe, especially if we had a different set of judges. But then she goes to her briefing with RuPaul and he routinely tells her to depoliticize it without saying those words.
Right.
Like it has to be funny, it has to be fun.
People don't like to be preached at.
People don't like to be preached at. People don't like to be preached to. People don't like to learn.
Well, people don't like to be therapized by somebody who's not a licensed mental health counselor. How about that?
People don't like to hear something like something that is political and it makes you think, so they have to interrogate their own cognitive processes and all that.
People
shit.
Don't growth, nothing new, nothing different.
Same cut, same color.
Okay, nothing.
What you doing? Right, and like that is like the vapidness of. And I was just having this conversation with somebody because people like to, especially when we talk about politics, electoral politics in specific, they talk about being practical. Right. And we are 2 very leftist people. We talk about liberation work, and liberation work is deemed as unpractical. spectacle. Like that can never happen now because of so and so and so and so.
Girl, ain't that
and I'm
funny?
like, why the fuck not? Like, fuck the politicians. We have the power within us. We can do this.
We also can make it up. The conditions that we are under right now, right, were once upon a time something that was fantastical. The people who are oppressing us had to come up with this shit. So we have to come up with something new.
And we kind of like make it as we go along, but we also don't have to do that because we have ancestors and elders who have done this work and pretty much laid the foundation for us to
and there's people there's theorists, there's organizers, there's practical people that are disturbing the peace. That there are other countries. Liberation is happening all around the globe, right? This is not American centric, this is not US centric. So there is community that we have that we can tap into to understand and to learn from. And also, isn't anything better than living how we living right now?
Isn't anything, girl? Like, y'all would rather suffer through a pandemic with literally no governmental aid or support or even credible information.
Well, you know, the thing is that that's part of the conditions, and tying this back, you know, into RuPaul, right? RuPaul is a prime example of what happens when people are given an entry pass into the status quo, right? When they're given the costume, right? And you don't want to take the costume off. You will not remove the mask. You will not change your membership because you want all the privileges and all the perks that come along with it.
You love that power.
And to go against the grain, right, involves not necessarily losing power, but having a power that is different, which it will involve giving up something that you currently have.
Right.
And that is really difficult for people. And this is why he's encouraging Trinity to do what he's doing, right? If you want to get the success that I got, of which none of the girls will, because
it's a different time.
It's a different time. It's a different place.
Yeah.
And I don't think a lot of them want to in the way that you have.
Yeah.
Now, many of them won't say that out loud, you know? But you're pretty much telling her this is the way that you have to, you know, have to be, have to exist, have to go to get it right. And it's quite similar to the type of, what do you say, like teaching and conditioning that happens to young queer folk, right? That I'm certain that RuPaul experienced in some way in their life.
And plays an active role in now.
And active role in doing now. So it's kind of just like, you don't see the cycle, girl. You ain't caught it. We 14, 13, however many seasons into this show, and what's not clicking?
It's not clicking. But I think RuPaul's not a dummy. RuPaul is actually, I believe, to be very intelligent.
An evil mastermind.
Yeah. So she knows what's going on, and because she knows what's going on, she knows how to actively combat that. So going back to my point of practicality, there's a thin line, very thin line, if a line at all, it might be invisible, between practicality and assimilation. And I think that's the line that, I don't even think RuPaul walks it. He just is fully on the assimilation side.
At this point,
and
yes.
trying to make Black queens in particular, queens of color, especially ones that have like a political message, whether it be HIV/AIDS destigmatization, or talking about race, or even just talking about like loving yourself and owning it or whatever. He just kind of wants to sap that out of them to appease the majority white audience, or to make himself feel comfortable, or both.
Right. Well, I think honestly, I think it's both, right? Because one, you need other people to buy into this bullshit fantasy that you live in order to sustain it, right? If we're not participating, right? If we're not trick or treating at your door, you know what? It doesn't work for you. We stop buying in. If girls stop auditioning, if somebody decides to create another franchise, if people decide to expose the truth, if that book that you had published once upon a time that has been disappeared off the face of the planet starts to resurface into publication, you know what I'm saying? Like,
child, I'm trying to get my hands on it.
I've
read parts of it.
Okay.
Dr. Lady J's dissertation, I've read parts of it through her dissertation. And it is
okay. If
it reveals a lot.
It changes the context. The context, right? That is that costume that you're wearing. It allows you to be on that assimilation side,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Also, the other part that they want you to do it is to have Trinity, to have any of the queens. Trinity, Gottmik, Tamisha, anybody who has, even if they're nobody gets it 100% right, but anybody that's doing something peppermint, anybody that's doing something just a little bit different, right? If we see that and we show that that is something that one is palatable for an audience,
right?
Somebody can watch it, right? And being comfortable and uncomfortable, I don't think it's synonymous with being palatable. We are allowed to digest. We often digest content that is complex, difficult, messy, makes us challenge and think the way that we exist, the way that
American
we are.
media.
Okay. So if we do that and we show that that is something that is desirable, something that people can learn from, something that people can do, people are going to start asking why you aren't, right?
Yeah. And RuPaul knows that. Like, he knows that. I would bet my last dollar. Like, he is threatened in a way by that and by the new girls coming up doing something different and doing something new and inherently political, whether they know it or not. Like, and I hate to put this label on them, but it just is what it is. Like, God make peppermint, Tamisha Candy. What they do is inherently political. I mean, drag is political. But when you show up with those identities and those bodies and doing it the way that they do it, that isn't political, whether they want to believe it or not. Like,
exactly.
When I see Tamisha, when I absorb God Mick, not absorb, that's a weird word.
Soak what?
But when I consume their art, for me, as a political person, whatever the fuck that means, but as someone who is in tune to all that, it hits me in a different way because I'm like, look at this new and not new, but like new on this scale of drag. So like, and that's the thing about RuPaul. Like, he wants to be inclusive only for the moment of not being dragged for it.
That's literally just not to be dragged. This like whole white it's pretty much like this white. It's the same thing as like white liberal performance art. You know,
I hate this term, but virtual signaling.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's very that. Like, just so you know, don't cancel me.
Yes, guys, I'm hip. I'm new. I'm current.
I voted for. Who was I supposed to vote for?
Right.
Okay.
I would have voted for Obama a third time if I could.
And when you tell them I was like, I didn't vote for Obama, they'd be like,
bitch.
And you're real quiet. Everybody's like, wait, what was I supposed to, what, huh?
When I say, and I've never talked about this publicly, but when I say I didn't vote for Joe Biden, everybody's like, oh my God, you're a Trump supporter?
No.
Like, bitch.
No, I'm not.
I am literally
they're trapped in the binary, babe. They're trapped. If I can't do this, I have the only other option is that. And I'm like, literally, my existence transcends binaries. Why would you think I would vote that way?
Why
I don't
would
even
you think
live
I would
that way.
to that? So I taught American government and politics last semester. It was very like, they asked me a week before the semester started to teach this class.
What did that syllabus look like?
Girl, I threw it. So I canceled class that entire first week to get myself together. Right. And I was also working full time in residence life. So they asked you a week before the semester starts. You have move-ins, you have RA training. Like,
oh, this was when still you was doing a directing at the residence life.
I was still a director of residence life at this time. And I was at my desk and they emailed me and they said, somebody, resigned that we didn't foresee resigning.
Save us.
Black fag, can you save us?
You right there.
Knowing that I would probably say yes, because I love to teach. My students love me and I love them too.
And they know good and damn well that you could use the extra coin, because if they was paying you enough on the other salary, it would have been no.
Girl, they was like, oh, he can use this extra.
They think because they give you that little place to live at, that you could just do whatever you want.
That's the thing that's why I left. Mm-hmm. But anyway, so I taught American government and politics last semester. And even though they only gave me a week notice, it turned out to be a really good class, because instead of being someone who and then we dug into the chapter and all the ins and outs of federal government and state government and blah, blah, blah. What we talked about a lot was that kind of binary two-party system, what that looks like, and can we imagine something different, which took them out of their comfort zone, because as 18 to 22, 23-year-olds, they are taught a very prescribed version of American government, American history.
School primes you for that from preschool about this, right? To prepare you for the minute that you leave high school. That is one thing that is drilled in.
Oh, absolutely.
That there is Republican and there is Democrat, and you better
you have
one.
to choose. Yes, because when I didn't necessarily ask, because that could cause a whole thing, but through their writing, through just talking to them individually, through office hours and whatnot, they all had a pretty, stoic and standard political identity, and to the extent of I'm a Republican or I'm a Democrat.
Right.
And most of them were Democrat. We in Cleveland. But some of them were Republican. And by the end of the class, and this is like, I was going to say no credit to me, but like I'm the teacher. So like a little bit credit to me. Like some of them are like, well, I'm really kind of rethinking my like very, very kind of stark and like
rigid.
Yes, like I have to be this one thing based on how I was socialized, how I was raised, my identity. Right. I had a lot of white male students in particular. I don't know why, but that's just kind of how the cards laid. A lot of white male students really rethinking their political identity, their political affiliation, their political ideology. That's what we talked about a lot. Like very first class, well, after syllabus day, I got into political ideology and what is that? What is that for you? And some of them, they all have one. Some of them can't put it into words.
Right.
And I was like, if you don't have one, that's fine. We're going to develop it over the course of this next 16, 17 weeks. Right. So by the end, and I was very pleased that most of them they had a political kind of ideology, even if it was, I'm rethinking what I once believed and now I'm doing something different. Because my whole last week of class, I followed the textbook, which sucked.
Because you didn't get to pick the book, right?
I didn't get to pick the book. I was a week before the class started. I pretty much inherited the book and syllabus from the last person. And the book sucked. It was very American exceptionalist. Like, we are so great. We are so, and we dug into that too. I was like, don't let the myth of American exceptionalism kind of blind you from reality. Right. But yeah, by the end, they were just like, I'm kind of rethinking what I believe about this two-party system, what I believe as a Democrat, what I believe as a Republican. I'm starting to view them as two of the same, as two separate entities. And that's not me trying to indoctrinate students. I'm just exposing them to the truth.
Yeah.
Which is something that they won't get K through 12.
Oh my God, pause. I just had a total epiphany.
What?
This week's challenge on RuPaul's Drag Race is the Drag Tots Challenge, right?
Yes.
This is supposed to be something that kids, young people, youth can digest.
Woo! I know where you're going with this.
So if this, oh my God, y'all, I just got chills down my body.
I know where you're going with this.
So RuPaul depoliticizing Trinity with intentionality. I am labeling that as intentional.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Goes to furthermore indoctrinate, right? Or and mold the political minds of these young people to uphold these standards and this politic, this oppressive and regressive politic that RuPaul has.
Yes.
That the mainstream, that the status quo has. It's brainwashing the children.
And they want to talk about me indoctrinating these kids, which I have been accused of. But like, that is what y'all do. So I've talked about this before. I did a panel for Cleveland Public Library, and we talked about kids and like, all that shit. And what I didn't get to say what I wish I would have said was that, American culture, they swear they always concerned about the babies. What about the children? Two niggas on Disney can't hold hands with they being like, what about the kids? What are we
grow up. Let
what are we
kids be
teaching our kids? And I'm looking at y'all like, yes, what about the kids? Like, what about these babies? From before America was America, white settlers, white people, colonizers, whatever you want to call them, have been discriminating and oppressing children to propagate the same white supremacist system. In the same breath, training privileged or kids in power, white kids, to also propagate and marginalize other kids, right? So we were talking about at this time, this was in June during Pride, and that's when all this anti-trans, anti-queer legislation was prominent in a lot of states across the country.
And still coming through.
It wasn't federal, at least a lot of it wasn't, but all of these bills, especially anti-trans bills, were coming up state after state after state across the nation, right?
Many here in our own state.
Yes, a lot in Ohio. And a lot of it was targeting kids. You can't play sports. You don't have access to health care. Like,
you're not a girl. You're not a boy.
You're not a girl.
This is where you go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
this is where you do this.
And we still talking about fucking bathrooms 5-6 years later. But like a lot of that legislation was targeting kids in school, right? so there was like, well, what about the kid? I was like, as early as America, before America was America, as soon as the ships hit the shore, even before that, they were always using kids to propagate this oppressive nature. Case in point. Let's go back to colonial America, Virginia in particular.
Close your eyes. Take it back there. Yeah. Smell the grass.
Take a trip with me, y'all.
Smell the oppression and the blood-stained ground.
Virginia, the birthplace of racism. Right. So I think we're all familiar with the term slave codes, right? Which were just legislation passed to codify slavery. Codify just means to write into law. One of the first and most popular slave codes was that the child inherits the condition of the mother, right? Don't matter who the daddy is. Daddy could be a white slave owner or white enslaver. I'm trying to use different language. He could be a free black man, can be an enslaved black man, could be a poor white man who was probably working the fields for somebody, because that did happen. It's not talked about, but poor white people were going through it.
Well, we know that white supremacy doesn't work for white people either. At least the ones that are not in the top ring.
Throughout history, girl, through enslavement, we can go back to the 1920s, to the Great Depression. Like, y'all was going through it. And when black people was like, let's get in solidarity, let's get in class solidarity, and let's work against this thing.
Shame you, nigger.
They were like, oh no, you niggers, no, not you.
It's a little too much.
I'm better than you solely based on my whiteness. Same thing happened with immigrant populations. The Italians came over, the Irish came over, and at first they didn't really have like they did but didn't. But the way they assimilated into white culture was to shit on black people, and they learned that very early on, and they did it crazy. Look at the draft race riots. That'll tell you everything you need to know. But the child inherits the condition of the mother, which just means as long as you are enslaved, and you will be for the rest of your life, and we're going to write into law that you will, as many children as you have, that is an inherited labor force that we have. Right? So again, then we can sexually assault you and pump out kids at our discretion.
Yep.
Or we can mate you with another enslaved man and tell you what did happen. Like, they would say, go have sex with her, and we're gonna watch you do it and impregnate her, so she can just. So there's a very good book. It's called Laboring Women by Dr. Jennifer L. Morgan, where she talks about the reproductive labor.
We'll link it in the bibliography.
Yes, she talks about the kind of like the dual oppression of women, or people who could reproduce. Again, women are that label is something we assign to them, and not necessarily how they labeled themselves, right? So people who could reproduce,
right? She
talks about the kind of the dual oppression, the dual labor of having to do the agricultural labor and the reproductive labor,
right?
You
are the supply and the demand.
Absolutely, right. So that's just a very early example of how they use kids to propagate the same oppressive, evil white supremacist culture, right? And they do it all the time. Like, and I quote the scripture, train up a child the way they should go. Right, that is just not biblical scripture. Like, that is political instruction. They are teaching kids to be evil, to be racist, to be white supremacists. So they go to school and they talk about the black girl's hair, and they talk about our skin color, how dark we are, and they talk about, oh, you ain't got no daddy, before they even know what that means in real life, because they are trained in a way to do this.
Oh, it is prescribed. And then the duty on the other end, right, for folks like you and I, right, is that there's so much unlearning that you have to do with the person, so much grace that you have to surprise, so much additional harm that has to incur, right, in order to get someone. If you are that person who is pledged to do education and outreach and advocacy, that often involves us working with quote unquote allies or accomplices, right, that have been given this thought, have been trained in this method, right, that they have to unlearn, and then also still stand against people like them that believe it to be true. It's just so rough, and this is why I be telling people this shit is intentional. This is theory, this is practice, this is study, Oh, child.
You need both. You need the theory and you need the practice, which what I talked last time we was in the studio, I talked about my own personal journey and trying to actually practice the politics that I say I subscribe to. Right? You need both. You got to have, if you really about this shit, you got to have both. And it has to be enacted in like your politics and your relationships and a personal, platonic, romantic, familial, whatever. Like, if you say that you are this thing, I need you to be this thing at all fronts. And of course, no one's perfect. You're going to get it wrong. You're going to slip up. There's some things you don't know that you will know in the future. but the effort has to be there, right? And I am low-key inspired, especially by this younger generation coming up, that they are more willing, mainly because they have the information at their fingertips. Something that previous generations, even our generation, wasn't. We didn't have all of that.
But we thought we knew it all, girl.
And we thought we knew it all.
We was getting our parents together.
Bitch,
we was getting everybody together.
We got text messages in middle school, and we was like, oh, shit, the world has changed.
Oh, God. Picture phone.
Yeah, right. Children, at one point in time, there were phones with no cameras.
Zero.
In middle school, text messages was just became a thing.
And you only got so many, remember? Because unlimited text message wasn't a thing at first. Phone still had minutes. And then when you got the phone with the camera, it didn't have a full alphabet keyboard. Like, phones had buttons, y'all.
Literal buttons that you had to push. Sometimes you had to push hard enough to make it stick.
To sneak in text during class was a different animal when you had that click, 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 click.
When you
click,
had that
click,
big, kind of that big ass, and was no sneaking.
Even when the phone, the T-Mobile Sidekick was a cultural reset.
Child, you flipped that. I wanted one so bad.
I didn't get to have one.
I didn't get to have one either.
I had a razor for a very short period of time.
I wanted a razor so bad.
Very short period of time. I stole it.
You mopped it.
I mopped it from the lost and found. Got it activated. It was in the lost and found. It was lost. I found it.
At that time, it was easier to activate a phone that you just found too.
Nowadays, they done tracked you. The police been
Yep.
knocked on your door.
They're like, find my iPhone. He right here, sir. She right there. Get her.
Oh God. Ooh. So bringing it all back together. Question: do you think by depoliticizing Trinity or artist, people like Trinity, a performer, do you think that in any way that hinders the quality of the artistic performance?
Yes and no. Because Trinity, as an example, she got those critiques from RuPaul. She switched it around and she still turned it. Right. The week before last, she won. And this week she did
Positivity
very well.
Positivity is fierce when you know your status right.
And I think her original verse was better, but whatever. And this week she did very well. I mean, they kind of all did well this week. But I do think, in a way, because art is political. Like, there's no, even people say, like, I just make art to make it. I'm like, is that a black hand that made it? So inherently it's political. Like, there's scales to it, there's levels to it. But art is political. So I think when you try to, especially things that Trinity was trying to talk about, like HIV and AIDS stigmatization and all the things that she was trying to like bring to light, I do think that, and Trinity said this week when she's being critiqued by RuPaul, she feels like a little girl, kind of like being, talked to by an elder or a parent or something like that. So when someone with that influence over you, someone you view as a mentor, as a mother, gives you those kind of depoliticized critiques, I do think it hinders the art and it hinders your own personal politics, because now you are looking to someone who you admire and they are telling you, scrap all that and don't do it. Or do it differently. Say it differently in a way that is not so political. And again, not in those words, but that is what essentially RuPaul is saying to her.
Right, that's the repercussion from it.
Right. So I do think it hinders the art and it hinders the personal. Absolutely.
Yeah. It changes. It's not that it still can't be like good for a viewing audience. Like you get a pack of crayons and a coloring book, and if you just shade in everything inside the lines, it's going to be pretty. It's still pretty.
And Trinity's work has been exceptional.
Yeah.
So,
excuse me, how much more could it be? How many more people could it serve? What ability does this art have to transcend, to liberate, to heal?
Right.
For the person who's creating it and the people that are investing in it and the people that are consuming it.
Right. RuPaul, how much could you learn?
Yeah.
From these queens.
But this is the thing. This is another reason why I like roll my eyes so far in the back of my head, pop them out, spin them around, and shoot them like dice when anybody wants to say that RuPaul is any type of mentor or educator, because these are not one-way streets. You and I both are educators, and I know, and you know, that when you are teaching, right, that, to quote my friend Cara Lee, that everything that we can do for that student, that student can do for themselves, which means that we can learn from them too.
Absolutely.
And we should be. It should be a collaborative process. As a teacher, as the person that is the leader in the classroom, we're meant to guide, to create boundaries and parameters for learning to happen in a safe way, for learning to challenge, to ask questions, right? To pull that out, to engage, to do that critical thinking, encourage that to happen, right?
Yes.
But we are not the sole proprietors of knowledge and growth that happens within the four walls of the classroom. If that was the case, we would all know the exact same thing, and that thing that we know would be very, very limited and would serve few.
Right, and which is why I try to limit the power dynamics in my classroom. Of
The
course,
ones that aren't necessary to have.
right. Of course, I'm the teacher and they're the student, so that just is what it is. But like, I very much view it as a collaborative effort. That's how I structure my classroom.
Yeah, and I tell my artists that like the roles are different. That's what it is. It's not that one is more important than
the
another.
other. It's just different.
It's just different.
We are seated in two different
Right.
places in life.
My
and
job
I
is to
happen
take
be here.
attendance, and your job is to
be in attendance.
You know what I'm saying? It's just the role is different. The responsibilities are different.
Right.
But I have in no way, in any way, have more power, more control than you in that sense.
Absolutely not. But in my position of authority, I kind of have a more labored responsibility to you than you have to me.
Exactly.
And that is where I try to lessen the power dynamics, right? You are a student, you show up to class, you do your work. But as your teacher, as your professor, I owe you
Right.
this. Like, I owe you respect, I owe you decency, I owe you flexibility. Like, there's no late work in my class. You turn it in when you turn. Like, of course, we have deadlines, so I can grade and keep track of myself. But there's no deduction for late work. You get it in when you get it in. If you want extra credit, go back and do the work that you missed, and then turn it in. You'll get full credit, and then that would be your extra credit.
Right.
Like, right.
So, it's very that. So, again, RuPaul is not that. And it's not that at this point we're expecting him to be, but it's like the audience that watches the show and the participants that are on it, we see more and more a need for this type of challenge, this type of critiquing, this type of examining to be done, because this does directly impact the lives of the people that, like, again, there are so few places, in mainstream where we can digest this amount of queer specific culture where we get to see and experience artists and people and lives and the storytelling that is from our people, right? And when I say
that can't be void of politics,
and it can't,
it absolutely can't.
We wouldn't even be able, the very thing that you spit upon, that you shame, that you try to downplay is what has allowed you to be able to have a show like this. So with that being said, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.
You're listening to Drag from the Left with Juanita Bindum and Avery Ware. We'll be right back after this break. We're back to Drag from the Left. If you're lesbian, gay, bisexual, trans, queer, intersex, or asexual, this is your home. This is your home. Now your hosts, Juanita Bindum and Avery Ware.
And we are back. We are here clowning on our break per use.
Right.
I need you all to stop what you're doing right now and go on over to social media real quick. And I need you to like, follow, subscribe, share, retweet, all of the above. We would certainly appreciate it. I'm your hostess with the mostest, the very Reverend Dr. Juanita Bindum.
Hi, y'all. It's Avery here. My drag name this week is Aretha Franklin.
And we are back to wrap up the episode.
Yes,
long story short, RuPaul is continually full of shit, which gives us lots of content to talk about on our show. And so do those queens over there that do these things that are quite peculiar. Speaking of which, Miss Ginger Munch.
So I have had this kind of feeling about Ginger Munch since low-key week 2, when she did it to Jiggly, her alleged girlfriend and sister. But it seems like every week, and correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like every week she makes it a point to be intentionally condescending and rude to the queens around her. For example, one week Sonique was in the bottom and no one voted for her. And Kylie Sonique loved.
Including Ginger. Ginger didn't vote for her either.
And that's the week Ginger won.
Yeah.
And she sent home somebody else that wasn't Kylie. I forget. But no one voted for, when they went out the group vote, no one voted for Kylie Sonique Love, right? So Kylie was like, thank y'all so much. I'm so glad like none of y'all even thought to put my name in that box. Ginger made a point to be like, well, I was going to vote. I was real close to voting for you because you did have the worst critiques. She didn't. But I decided not to. Why would you say that to her?
Oh, like, she does it. She does it every week. Or when Scarlett and Jan had the comments about how they thought each one should go home, and Ginger made a point to tell Jan to be like, Scarlett thinks you're horrible. Yeah. Or even this past week, she went to Raja and was pretty much, so this is how it's going to go. And like the Queens low key kind of put her in that position of power, because even this week when they were, if you weren't the winner, you were in the bottom, right? And they were even Eureka was like, well, I think it's between, she was talking to Trinity, so I think it's between me, you, and Kylie. No, it's between everybody. It's between y'all all in the bottom. Anybody can go. And then Trinity slipped up and said too, like, we're not gonna say none of us in the bottom this week. You just got to make a choice. No, the bottom is the bottom, girl. It is important that we name, and this is something that falls. This is why it's so hard for us to fight the oppressor, because we want to come up with all these funny little names and all these loopholes. Name it is what it is. Name it. It is. Racism is racism. Misogyny is misogyny. Transphobia is transphobia. Being in the bottom four is being in the bottom. For. And I say all the time, you cannot change something you won't acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge you in the bottom, how can you not get there again? How can you advocate for yourself in this moment and then not get there again? If you cannot say what I said was transphobic, how can you change? How can you remedy that and be better in the future if you won't even acknowledge the fact that what you said was transphobic? Well, since America is exceptional, I must be too. And that's the whole, going back to American politeness culture. We try to find all these loopholes and we try to reword things and try other verbiage to make it palatable. Fuck palatable. We can't. Palatable has not worked. It is not working. The world is on fire because it's not working. My people eat chitlins. I'm not worried about something being palatable. And I don't partake in that particular dish. Neither do I. I just thought it'd be fun to say. I love my people, but no. Mother Mary. Girl, I walk in because my grandma don't make it every year, but sometimes my cousins love chitlins. I think in most times, at least in maybe down south it might be different, but I think now most times that if the chitlins are cooked and eaten, it's like a very rare occasion. It's like, Uncle so-and-so coming. Somebody asked for it. Asked for it, so I'm a clean, and then we all get the warning that the chitlins being cooked so that we could go do something else. Right. Like, can we crack open this window? I'm gonna sit outside on the porch, y'all. I don't care how many onions or potatoes you cut up in there. It's the smell. It's going to smell, girl. It's going to smell. I love us because you ain't black. You won't even know what we talk about. Not like a chitlin. What is a chitlin? And what's the smell? It's what it sounds like, and it smells like what it sounds like. Girl, if you smelled it, you would know what a chitlin is. You would know exactly what a chitlin is, baby. But yeah, my cousins love chitlins, and I'm just like, what is wrong with y'all? So then they my grandma likes chitlins too, but she has to make it, and I have to endure the smell. At least once every other year. And I just want to know, what else is you cooking? Because I can't have none of that. I can't have none of that. I've never, and I would tell you right now, I ain't never tasted it. I'm not. You never tasted? I've tasted chitlins. I have tasted them. I feel like my cousin. Oh God, no! I deleted that memory and it's coming back. Juanita's holding her stomach at this point. She is going through it. Why did I have to do this? I did it to myself. You might as well get it out. Just say it. Ooh, I did taste it one time, and my cousin was like, "Alex, if you put some ketchup and a little hot sauce on it, it'll just taste like ketchup and hot sauce." I'm like, "Why do I gotta taste the chili? Just taste it." It was on one of them white plastic forks, so the fork was stained with the color of the sauce. Yes. And I just began to get ill, and I had to go get me a little piece of burger. Yes, because my stomach had spin around like a tornado. It'll do that, and we both have those issues with our stomach. I'm like, why would you know good and well I have emotional bowels? That's what I call it. Like, you want me to put intestines in my intestines? It just don't seem. It don't seem right. Also, I just feel like anybody who bottoms, like that food is like persona non grata. You can't eat that. Not if you're trying to have a twirl. That night, you definitely can. Baby. And there are tricks, because I bottom, we both bottom. Who bottom?
I bottom.
We be cutting
But anyway, my point is you don't have to starve yourself for dick. There are tricks. You just have to be intentional, you have to be knowledgeable, and you have to know what you're doing.
There are tricks to the trade. I am on a roll today, baby.
Okay, anyway. Ooh. What is all
Oh my God, we gone too far.
The headphones then fell off my head yet again. Okay. All right. To bring it back so we can wrap up this point. Ginger means the rude bitch.
Point blank and the period.
No, and like the girls are like, well, she knows how to play the game. She knows the competition or whatever. Great. Cool. She is a really good competitor on good, debatable.
Honestly, is you that good of a competitor? Because you already did All Stars once before, one of the greatest seasons of Drag Race ever, All Stars 2, and you flopped, and you got your ass handed to you by, like, it was heavy. You were there with the heavy hitters.
That's when All Stars was literally the best of the best.
At that point in the competition, we had only had at that point 7 seasons of Drag Race. At that point,
All Stars.
This was the top. I mean, it was the top.
There were no weak
There was
queens
not
in that
a
cast.
flop there except for you.
Except for you on those runways.
Okay.
And then talking about, well, she got mad because she got voted out. I forget about who. And it was her and
Alyssa Edwards sent her home.
And it was her and Katya in the bottom.
Yeah, and she was talking about you being strategic.
She had static for Alyssa for sending her home. But then she was like, well, I won't let you go home, Katya. So, bitch, what you mad for? If you was going to go home anyway, whether you got voted out or you would have sent yourself home,
example,
what's the point?
There's a prime example of that is a factual fact that Ginger just be low-key, high-key, stirring the pot. Like, she just be wanting to, like, cause a little ruckus.
Yeah.
And there is a pattern here. And, we talk about complex topics here on the show. And there is this thing that happens when Ginger where she can, one, like you had said before, that she does have this southern type of politeness that allows her to kind of wrap some really rude reads up in
it's
this
like a slick knife. You don't feel sticking you.
No, but the internal, you're hemorrhaging, girl.
You still bleeding.
Also, she's fat and femme, and no fats, no femmes, no Asians. That she done hit 2 out of the 3.
Yeah,
and there's this thing that happens, with white people who deem themselves as oppressed in some way, that then enact other acts of violence and harm or just rude mess against other people. But you can't say nothing.
And they justify it based on some of their other marginalized identities, like her being fat and being femme.
So it is something that that happens, and I talked about this the other day. There's a scene in the movie Respect that I saw yesterday where there's a black character who pretty much like goats this white dude into saying the N-word, right? But my argument is there should be no case in the world where you can goat somebody into saying the N-word. Like, if I call you ugly, stupid, a cow, your mama stank, it should never be you fucking, like, where does the N-word, like...
Unless you are racist.
Like, it shouldn't even be like, I'm trying so hard not to say what I really want to say. Well...
You shouldn't want to say
First off, you know me. Say what you wanted to say. Because, like, I want to know what it is what you want to say.
Yeah,
because
let me know.
The Bible says that the thought is in itself sinful.
And that's no word.
Okay, that's scripture.
It's written in black and white.
Okay, and they know they love. White people love everything got to be written down. Okay,
it's right there,
typed out. Okay,
yeah,
like that somehow makes it like you can't type and write lies.
Like some that are in the Bible.
Okay, but I have tried it. I have researched it. I know for a fact that if you thinking it, if you was gonna say it, you might as well. Especially you would notified me that you are thinking it.
Right.
You said it.
Just say it.
You said it.
Just say it so I can bop you upside your head.
That'd be the thing.
And we can get it over with.
They don't want to get smacked. That'd be the only thing that they don't want to get smacked.
People say, white people be like, well, I can't say this. And, you can say whatever you want to.
There's repercussions for our actions.
But there are repercussions.
They taught us that in preschool.
If you say it around, and I'm not going to speak for everybody, but if you say it to me, around me,
someone get to get hit.
You can say whatever you want to, girl. I'm not going to stop you from speaking your mind. But your mind can get your ass whooped.
Okay.
So
now, mind you, a couple episodes ago we talked about violence, but this is different. Okay?
This is different, bitch. That language.
Well, I had to let my friends know.
Me.
Like, I had to let people know. Like, it's not just me and the people that I kick it with. If this type of like slur and stuff, you can't just be saying what you think you gonna say.
Yeah.
Not around here. That's the point blank in the period.
Yeah.
And this is not, we did not say Ginger said the N-word. Now Eureka done said the N-word, but
publicly
and
proudly.
Now, I don't know what Ginger says when she's alone, but
that Southern twang I fully believe is a hard ER.
Well, y'all remember what happened with Paula Dean? So, now okay. Praise the Lord, because now we got patty pie.
Y'all remember what happened with Paula Dean?
Okay. I'm just saying. Cause
oh shit, come some of that laugh out. Oh my
alrighty.
God. That took me out. I don't know.
I just don't. All I'm gonna say is we wrapped it up. We try to use these excuses, and this can happen across groups of marginalized people too, right? Because we see if we isolate and we want to talk about like, well, we can never not talk about race. It's wrapped into literally the fabric of the world. But if we're going to talk about like another community, we talk about queer folk, right? How often are we at the bar or at the restaurant or whatever, and the gay boys got something misogynistic or transphobic to say, but I can say blase blah because I'm gay. Like, and it's just not the case. If this word and this language or the repercussions of this word existing do not affect you, you do not get to.
Yeah, you can't reclaim a slur that never belonged to you.
Okay, like, I don't. I hear tranny hooker A B C D E F G all the time when I'm, out at the spot.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying.
And when I'm with the trans girls, that's fine.
Right.
That's their language to reclaim. Us is, well, you are not cis, and I'm kind of cis and kind of not. But when I'm I hang around primarily with a lot of cis men. Like when I'm out at the bar.
Some of them are real cute,
ain't they? And not my friends in particular.
No, Avery's friends is real cute.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about. Okay, my friends are cute.
I was gonna say, wait a minute. No, I was going down the list in my mind. I was like, wait a minute.
No, my friends are cute. I'm talking about they are not the ones who use these slurs that I'm hearing. But like when I'm out, sometimes with other people, particularly that one situation where I was with the dude I was dating and his friend, they were saying a lot of disparaging things about trans people, and I was just like, yo, that's not. It's not cute.
It's not
like,
the tea.
And it was like, well, kind of what you said, like, oh, we gay, we all fags. We could, like, no,
that's not the
that's
thing.
not how it works.
We're not the same type of fag.
Yeah, I was like, we can say fag because we all fags. Like, but if a straight girl came in here and called us a bunch of fags, we would be offended, wouldn't we?
Period. Because that's the number one thing. The straight girls come up in the bar and it's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna just need Miss Gentleman to
keep my eye on that one.
I'm gonna have to keep my little eye on that one.
Yeah.
See what's going on. Let's but I think that's enough on that. Let's transition real quick into a speed round of Saint or Sinner.
Okay.
So our Saint and Sinner this week will encompass the total performance in the episode. I mean, the look. So like the voiceover, the performance in the episode. So it's one Saint per person.
Got it.
So I will start with Miss Eureka O'Hara. Sinner. The outfit was okay.
Especially because she made it herself.
Yeah.
It was pretty.
The outfit was okay.
Commendable.
I also think that the episode did okay. Like there was a smidgen of fat phobia going on, but I do think in a way they also handled the episode with like grace as it pertained to like Eureka and her size, like, whatever. But I think her voiceover, like, again, it's supposed to be for kids shows. It was a little bit too dark, a little bit too like, everyone ain't you're gonna die. Ah! It's like she was being divine again or something. And I didn't
like, I don't think you want to be a villain, but villain for a kid show is it's subversive, but they do it way that's tactful and intelligent.
Yeah, she should have went the more like Maleficent route. Like I like identify who has harmed you, and now that you know that you can do something different.
Right.
And you can still be a little bit dog.
Yeah.
It was a way to do that.
Clever with it, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to get out of Center.
I'm going to give it a Center too.
And, she got eliminated, so. Bye. The spoilers I got, girl, which I will tell you when we turn the mic off. Y'all don't. We don't do spoilers on the pod.
Right.
So,
we try not to. As much as you read my face, I was like, because I seen the spoilers for next week.
And I'm just like, ooh, child. I mean, y'all got YouTube and Google. Y'all find it.
Yeah.
Then next up is, the girl we was just talking about, Ginger Minj. I'm going to give Ginger a center in the grand scheme of things.
Encompassing all of it, I'm gonna give it a center, but I do like the garment she made.
Yeah, it was a cute garment.
Yeah.
I do not think that it was necessarily fantastical in any way, though. Like, it's something that's very ginger, which
the
is
silhouette
fine.
Was the same, and
which is fine. And she looked cute, and her makeup was good or whatever, so that wasn't bad. But I also didn't buy it for a kid show. It was a little still. It wasn't kind and lifted, and it just wasn't a kid's show for me.
Right.
Trinity K. Bonet. I'm gonna get out a Saint.
I'm gonna give it a Saint.
That was a cool look to pull out.
Mm-hmm.
I do wish her catwalk was a little bit more slinky, but Raja's the queen of the catwalk.
Yes, Raja pumps it.
That is a queen of the catwalk. Raja can walk, baby.
I wish Trinity would have walked more. If your thing was like, I'm gonna teach you how to walk.
Yeah, she should have walked more. She could have even got down a little bit and did a little slinky thing.
But I also like what she made.
Yeah, it was cute.
I like what she made.
Her voice. I like what she wrote in her voiceover, but if I'm being really nitpicky, that the way that she sound in the voice, her voice acting was not the best to me.
Yeah.
A lot of them sound a little bit too much like themselves. Like when you do voiceover acting, you have to be a lot more precise, a lot more bright in your voice. A lot of us have like heavy tongues or that kind of thing.
You
got to be a little bit more bright when you do that stuff.
Right.
Somebody who did it really successfully to me is Miss Raja O'Hara, and I give her Archangel, the saint of all saints.
She deserved the win this week.
The look was right.
That wig and them glasses. Raja is beautiful.
Change your perspective, baby.
She said if you offbeat, they just don't like
they just can't hear your
song. I love, and Michelle pointed it out, but that was actually like a really fucking.
That was a great line.
Like, it was exceptional.
I see myself saying that to someone now.
Oh, absolutely.
I will say that to somebody now. She moved her body well. She pumped it. It was so clever to change your perspective and to have eyes to be like perspective. I see you, queen. And she said, I see you later. Like, it was full of those very RuPaul-esque puns.
Yes.
She takes critique well. She still does what she want to do because she still, at first it was, I semen queen or you semen, something semen. But now it's I see ya queen.
Right.
So it still had what she wanted it to be,
but she switched it
up a little bit.
Yeah.
And last but certainly not least, is Kylie Sonique Love.
So Kylie did right what Eureka should have done. It was kind of like villain-esque.
I just didn't think it went far enough, but it was cute. It was cute. It could have went further. Especially, I noticed she hasn't entered because of the swiftness that came with how well she did Snatch Game. I know that she can do this. I think like this is one of those things where like she can make a look. She knows how to put it. Like she said, she's like, I know how to rig up the gig. I can rig up. That was a lie too. I can rig up the gig, baby.
She has a lot of good one-liners.
She could rig up the gig, baby. But getting them looks together and having to write and do all the recording, all this. But they didn't even show us doing the voiceover part,
right? And they do it like what, in a day and a half.
So that's a lot. And then they got to get ready to get on because you see, she didn't even have her makeup on when she was still sewing the dress. And the other girls was almost done with face,
right?
So which is another reason why I don't think her makeup was as draggy as it could have been,
right?
And I think that's something to play the game. And God Mick did this, and I'm not saying that people have to do these things, but when we're thinking about the competition, God Mick knew that the number one critique going into the show would be that because of their trans identity, that somehow their drag was not going to be drag enough,
right? And
God Mick gives you high drag every single time, and the episodes that Kylie are most successful is when Kylie is doing that. There has to be, at least for the way that the show is set up, there still has to be a juxtaposition between Kylie Sonique and the person and Kylie Sonique, the drag performer.
Yeah.
And I think the artistry with the makeup is something that brings it into that world, right? So that's just, at least with the way that the judges are feeling, and that's a similar critique that she's gotten. So, well, that's that, you all. Thank you all for tuning in to yet another week of Drag from the Left.
I'm writing them
down. Yeah, another week of Drag from the Left. Thank you so much for clowning with us. Be sure to follow us online at Drag from the Left. That's DRAGFTL, and we will see you all next week. Love you. Bye.
You got the
No, I forgot.
You've been listening to Drag from the Left.
Drag FTL?
Yes, my love, we have fun, but we do discuss socio-political issues from a radical leftist perspective. And the goal of the show is to educate our community about radical black feminist politics in the hope of liberating our hearts and minds. We are artists, activists, and educators. We hope you had fun, and we hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from the show. Make sure to like, rate, and review, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at DragFTL. Till next time.